maple,
maple,
maple, maple, maple.
maple, maple, maple.
I drink maple syrup. Then I'm hyper, so I just run around like crazy and work it all off.
I drink maple syrup. Then I hyper, so I just run around like crazy and work in all up.
The maple trees were beautiful in fall.
The maple tree was beautiful in fall.
I had seen 2 or 3 small maples turn scarlet across the pond.
I had seen 2 or 3 small maple turn scarlet across the pond.
Belt,
Bird,
belt,
bird,
belt.
bird.
If you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. The only problem is when I get that belt, who's going to be left to fight? That's what I want to know.
If you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. The only problem is when I get that belt, who's going to be left to fight? That's what I want to know.
If you want to be best, you've got to beat the best. The only problem is when I get the belt, who's going to be left to fight? That's what I wanted to know.
The pants were a bit large, but a belt helped keep them up.
The birds were a bit large, but a belt helped keep them up.
He wears a beaver hat and swallow-tailed coat, girdled with a sailor belt and sheath knife.
He wears a beaver hat and swallow-tailed coat, girdled with a sailor belt and shaped knife.
Staircase,
Staircase,
staircase, staircase, staircase.
staircase, staircase, staircase.
The world is like a grand staircase, some are going up and some are going down.
The world is like a grand staircase. Some are going on and some are going down.
I ran down the staircase excited to see my friend.
I ran down the staircase excited to see my friend.
By the time I had rushed down the staircase and the Jacob's ladder, the man was no longer hanging from his rope.
By the time I had rushed down the staircase and then Jacob ladder, the man was no longer hanging from his rope.
Bandit,
Bandit,
bandit, bandit, bandit.
bandit, bandit, bandit.
One bandit came in the night to rob the couple, and shot at his wife when she exited the house.
One bandit came in the night to rob the couple and shot at his wife when she exited the house.
The bandit took all of their money.
The bandit took all of the money.
I have sailed 2 months in the archipelago, and yet I never saw even the shadow of a bandit or a pirate.
I have sailed 2 months in the archipelago, and yet I never saw even the shadow of the bandit of the pirate.
Mule,
Mule,
mule, mule, mule.
mule, mule, mule.
I grew up hard. I picked cotton and plowed with the mule and fixed the cars and played with the guitar and the piano.
I grew up hard. I picked coat and plowed with the mower and picked the car and played with the guitar and piano.
They strapped the bags onto the back of the mule.
The straightened the bag onto the back of the mule.
Both beasts dropped down with a snort of disgust, for neither horse nor mule can bear to listen to an elephant's voice.
Both beasts dropped down with a snort of the trust, for neither horse nor mule can bear to listen to an elephant's voice.
Tape.
Tape,
Tape. Tape. Tape.
tape, tape, tape.
Recalling a memory is not like playing a tape recorder. It's a creative process.
Recording a memory is not like playing a tape recorder. It's a creative process.
Caution tape prevented us from entering the property.
Caution tape prevented us from entering the property.
If the tape was pulled, a bell rang, and one heard a voice very near at hand, which made one start.
If the tape was pulled, a bell rang, and then hear a voice very near at hand, which one starts?
Result.
Result.
Excellence is the gradual result of always striving to do better.
Excellence is a gradually result of always striving to be better.
I was very content with the result of my exam.
I was very content with the result of my exam.
There has been no result.
There has been no result.
Pattern.
Pattern,
Pattern. Pattern. Pattern.
pattern, pattern, pattern.
I think destiny is just a fancy word for a psychological pattern.
I think destiny is just a fancy word for a psychological pattern.
The student's bad behavior became a pattern and had to be addressed.
The student's bad behavior became a pattern and had to be addressed.
The walls looked as though they were made of planks, covered with shabby paper, so torn and dusty that the pattern was indistinguishable.
The walls looked as though they were made of the plank, covered with a shabby paper, so torn and dusty that the pattern was indistinguishable.
Pity.
Pity,
Pity. Pity. Pity.
pity, pity, pity.
When I go out there, I have no pity on my brother. I'm out there to win.
When I go out there, I have no pity on my brother. I'm out there to win.
It's a pity that she couldn't attend the party.
It's a pity that she couldn't attend the party.
I done it out of pity for him, because he hadn't any aunt.
I don't it out of the pity for him because he hadn't any aunt.
Observe.
Observe,
Observe. Observe. Observe.
observe, observe, observe.
You can observe a lot by just watching.
You can observe a lot by just watching.
A great journaling method is to write down things that you observe throughout the day.
A great journaling method is to write it down things that you observe throughout the day.
It was so rapid that it gave him no time to observe.
It was so rapid that it gave him no time to observe.
Jail.
Jail,
Jail. Jail. Jail.
jail, jail, jail.
You can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution.
You can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail the revolution.
He spent the night in jail after getting pulled over.
He spent the night in jail after getting pulled over.
The jail was a trifling little brick den that stood in a marsh at the edge of the village, and no guards were afforded for it.
The jail was a triply little brick stand that stood in marshy at the edge of the village, and no guards were afforded.
Shore.
Chore,
Shore.
chore.
Shore. Shore. Shore.
chore, chore, chore.
Reading should be a pleasure, not a chore.
Reading should be a pleasure, not a chore.
My least favorite chore is washing dishes.
My least favorite chore is washing dishes.
Physicist.
Physicist,
Physicist. Physicist. Physicist.
physicist, 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 physicist.
No one gets angry at a mathematician or a physicist whom he or she doesn't understand, or at someone who speaks a foreign language, but rather at someone who tampers with your own language.
No one gets angry at the mathematical and physicist whom he or she doesn't understand, while as someone who speaks a foreign language, but neither as someone who tamper with your own language.
The physicist conducted some research in his lab.
The physicist conducted some research in his lab.
As a physicist, he had learned that of the 70 years of complete human life, at least 2/7, viz. 20 years are passed in sleep.
As a physicist, he had learned that of the 70 years of the complete human life, at least 2/7 20 years are passed in sleep.
Log.
Log,
Log. Log. Log.
log, log, log.
My main exercise is cardio. The treadmill is fine, but running outdoors gives me the best results. I try to log 6 to 8 miles a week.
My main exercise is cardio. The treadmill is fine, but running outdoor gives me the best results. I try to log 6 to 5 million a week.
I picked up the log and tossed it in the fire.
I pick up the log and toss it in the fire.
I went up and sat down on a log at the head of the island, and looked out on the big river and the black driftwood and away over to the town, 3 miles away, where there was 3 or 4 lights twinkling.
I went up sat down on the log and heard of the island, and looked out on the big river and the black driftwood and away over the town, 3 miles away, where there was 3 or 4 lights twinkling.
Swirl.
Swirl,
Swirl.
swirl,
Swirl. Swirl. Swirl.
swirl, swirl, swirl.
I think I've begun to take for granted how easily information can swirl around me.
I think I begun to take for granted how easily information can swirl around me.
The bubbles began to swirl down the drain.
The bubble began to swirl down the drain.
Above the noise of the water, as it swirled round the elephant's legs, little Tumai could hear more splashing and some trumpeting both upstream and down, great grunts and angry snortings, and all the mist about him seemed to be full of rolling, wavy shadows.
Over the noise of the water, as it is swirling around the elephant's leg, little Tomai could hear more splashy and sometimes see birds upstream and down. Great giant angry snowy, and all the mist about him seemed to be full of the lonely wave of shadow.
Cellar.
Cellar,
Cellar.
cellar,
Cellar. Cellar. Cellar.
cellar, cellar, cellar.
But the real interesting stuff is in the cellar and the attic.
But the real interesting stuff is in the cellar and at attorney.
They have at least 50 bottles of wine in the cellar.
They have at least 15 bottles of the wine in the cellar.
We drank. We stood on the floor of the cellar and drank.
We drank. We stood on the floor on the cellar of the drink.
Caught.
Caught,
Caught.
caught,
Caught. Caught. Caught.
caught, caught, caught.
I just always wanted to be a singer. My mom said I was even singing in my cot.
I just always wanted to be a singer. My mom said I was even singing in my cot.
The cot was practical but uncomfortable to sleep on.
The cot was practical but uncomfortable to sleep on.
The child began to cough in her cot.
The child began to cough in her cot.
Pond.
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 When you drop any new idea in the pond of the world, you get a ripple effect. You have to be aware that you will be creating a cascade of change.
When you drop a new idea in the pond of the world, you get a ripple effect. You have to be aware that you will be creating a cascading of the change.
We canoed around the small pond.
We canoed around the small pond.
The ice in the pond was not yet dissolved.
The ice in the pond was not yet dissolved.
Alarm.
Alarm.
Alarm. Alarm. Alarm.
Alarm. Alarm. Alarm.
Morning comes whether you set the alarm or not.
Morning comes whether you set up alarm or not.
The sound of the alarm interrupted my daydream.
The sound of the alarm interrupted my daydream.
The discovery flung us into a state of alarm that made us forget all our past and present sufferings.
The discovery plunged us into a state of alarm that made us forget all of the past and present suffering.
Sergeant.
Sergeant.
If you grew up in a household with a football coach who looks like a drill sergeant, you would think you would be tough.
If you grew up in the household with a football coach who looked like a drill sergeant, you would think you would be tough.
The sergeant ordered the soldiers to stand in a line.
The sergeant ordered the soldier to stand in the line.
Evil.
Evil.
No man is justified in doing evil on the ground of expedience.
No man is justified in doing evil on the ground of the expedient.
The evil witch in the movie eventually dies.
The evil witch in the movie eventually died.
Were it not for the ugly wound upon my hand, all that had passed during those dreadful hours might have been an evil dream. Double.
Double.
My father always taught me that when you help other people, then God will give you double. And that's what has really happened to me. When I have helped other people who are in need, God has helped me more.
My father always taught me that when you help other people, then God will give you double, and that's what had nearly happened to me. When I have helped other people who are in need, God had helped me more.
Double the amount of people meant double the fun.
Double the amount of the people means double the fun.
A large and comfortable double-bedded room had been placed at our disposal, and I was quickly between the sheets, for I was weary after my night of adventure.
A large and comfortable double-bed room had been placed at our disposal, and I was quickly between the seats, for I was weary after my night of adventure.
Dove.
Dove.
Managing is like holding a dove in your hand. Squeeze too hard and you kill it, not hard enough and it flies away.
Managing is like holding a dove in your hand. Squeezing too hard and you kill it, not hard enough and it flies away.
A dove is a symbol of peace.
A dove is a symbol of peace.
However, without any apparent object, he questioned Cosette, who was as candid as a dove is white and who suspected nothing.
However, without the appearance of that. He questioned Cousin, who was a candidate at the club is white and who suspected nothing.
Museum.
Museum.
Give me a museum, and I'll fill it.
Give me a museum, and I will fill it.
I visited the museum on a weekday, so not many people were there.
I visited the museum on the weekday, so not many people were there.
There are a few of us who frequent the Alpha Inn, near the museum. We are to be found in the museum itself during the day, you understand.
There is a few of us who frequent the Alpha Inn. Near the museum, we are to be found in the museum itself during the day, you understand.
Flap.
Flag.
Flap. Flap. Flap.
Flag. Flag. Flag.
When I sold my first middle-grade novel in 2005, it wasn't that common to put an author photo on the back flap, but 24-year-old Korean-American me insisted. I wanted Asian girls to see my face. And more than that, I wanted them to see what is possible.
When I sold my first middle-grade novel in 2005, it wasn't that common to put an author photo on the back flap. But 24-year-old Korean-American me insists. I want Asian girls to see my face, and more than that, I wanted them to see what is possible.
The flags flap in the wind.
The flag in the wind.
The logger-headed duck of South America can only flap along the surface of the water, and has its wings in nearly the same condition as the domestic Aylesbury duck. Motor.
Motor.
Cars have a large engine in the front and you have a gearbox, which is cumbersome. Electric cars don't have this problem. The motor is much smaller, the battery is below you. This will allow you to play with different shapes.
Cars have a large engine in the front and you have the gearbox, which is cumbersome. Electric car doesn't have this problem. The motor is much smaller, the battery is below you. This will allow you to play with different shapes.
The mechanic took a look at the motor of the car.
The mechanic took a look at the motor of the car.
So you are a motor bus, all bounce and go, and no consideration for anyone.
So you are a motor bus, all bounce and go, and no consideration for anyone.
Lung.
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 I've always been very involved in anything that had to do with lung disease or cancer.
I've always been very involved in anything that had to be with the lung disease or cancer.
My left lung was punctured in the accident.
My left lung was punctured in the accident.
Let us keep yelling at the top of our lungs.
Let us keep yelling at the top of our lung.
Puzzle.
Puzzle.
Without writers, none of the entertainment would exist. It starts with writers. Writers are the most important piece of the entire puzzle.
Without the writer, none of the entertainment would exist. It starts with a writer. Writer is the most important piece of the entire puzzle.
The puzzle was very difficult and left me feeling frustrated.
The puzzle was very difficult and then left me feeling frustrated.
You puzzle me, Jane. Your look and tone of sorrowful audacity perplex and pain me. I want an explanation. Security.
Security.
There is no security on this earth.
There is only opportunity.
There is no security on the earth. There is only opportunity.
The school recently improved the security of old dormitory buildings by installing a key card entry system.
The school recently improved the security of the older dormitory building by integrating key card entry system.
I think that I mentioned to you that the doctor kept a cheetah and a baboon. We had no feeling of security unless our doors were locked.
I think that I mentioned to you that the doctor kept a kitten and raccoon. We had no feeling of the security unless our door was locked.
Yawn.
Yan,
Yawn. Yawn. Yawn.
yan, yan, yan.
A yawn is a silent shout.
A yan is a silent shout.
I couldn't help but yawn during the long lecture.
I couldn't help but yawn during the long lecture.
He rose, yawned, and went downstairs to bed.
He rose, yawned, and went downstairs to bed.